So we're in real estate finance. Orion is a national wholesale residential mortgage lender, but I like to say we sell money. That's the number one product that everybody wants and needs. More specifically, it's money that's designated for the purchase of a home, which, as you know, is the ultimate dream for most Americans. Now, you'll notice I mentioned the word wholesale when I said that. Why? Why did I say that? Well, most people assume when you're talking mortgage that it's retail because that's what they're familiar with. So let me kind of give you an example of what I mean by retail. As you know, retail is business to consumer, or B2C, okay? A perfect example of a retail lender would be a bank. So for example, you as a consumer looking to get a mortgage might walk into a bank, which is a business. You talk to a loan officer. The loan officer is the salesperson at the bank that handles mortgages. He or she takes your application, puts you through a loan approval process until ultimately your loan gets funded. That is a retail transaction that most people are familiar with. That is not what we do. We do wholesale. We don't deal with the end consumer. We don't deal with the borrowers. We deal with what's called mortgage brokers. What is a mortgage broker? A mortgage broker is basically essentially a business that acts as a middleman between lenders like us and individual consumer borrowers. So it's an entirely different business channel. It's kind of analogous to the furniture business, for example, right? Furniture stores don't just have furniture out of nowhere. They buy it from furniture manufacturers. So the furniture manufacturer sells them to the store, and then the store in turn sells them to the end consumer. So one could say that we're like the furniture manufacturer of the mortgage business. We provide the money, they provide the clients, we come together, and that's how we do business. There's some really big advantages between wholesale and retail, and I'm not going to get into it right now. We can cover it later. But suffice it to say that our program, which we call LAUNCHPAD AE University, is really unique and really special simply because wholesale lenders generally don't hire entry-level individuals. Retail, on the other hand, does. So to be able to get into wholesale at an entry level is really something special. That in a nutshell is what we do. Well, it's very simple. It doesn't matter what degree they have. I don't care so much about what kind of grades they have. The biggest reason I should say that we're going after the college students is because we know they've at least made a 4-year commitment towards the achievement of a goal. But at the end of the day, what we're looking for is personality. We're looking for drive. We're looking for motivation. We're looking for kids that really want to make money. That's the bottom line. This is not a job for someone that just wants a job. Now, I'm not suggesting that money is the only way this job fulfills, because obviously you're helping people get into homes, so it's a very important part of our economy. But it really comes down to being motivated to make money. The job is a simple job, but it's not an easy job. It can be a grind at times. So you have to have the right person on the right drive. They have to be coachable. They have to be motivated. And they've got to be willing to take direction and follow the lead of those that mentor them and coach them. So the first 4 weeks is what we call LAUNCHPAD. They're going to spend about 4 weeks in a classroom environment alongside 15 to 25 of their recently hired colleagues, much like they do in college, learning the ABCs of mortgage and the 1, 2, 3s of selling. They're going to be involved in activities such as lectures, group work, case studies, calculations of debt ratios, understanding income statements, learn all that kind of stuff. We also do a lot of role playing and scripting. We teach them how to handle objections. Obviously, when you're picking up the phone to make a sale, you're going to hear all kinds of objections, so it's important that they have the confidence to be able to address those objections, so we cover all that stuff. Once they're done with LAUNCHPAD, that first 4 weeks, for the next year or so, they're spending most of their time on the phone, making anywhere between 50 to 100 phone calls a day. They're reaching out to mortgage brokers all around the country in an effort to establish and develop relationships in the hopes that they will eventually sign up and do business with us. After that first year, so during that time, again, making phone calls is simple, right? They're addressing objections, they're introducing themselves, they're sharing information about Orion, the products we provide, and so forth. The job, however, doesn't continue that way. Over time, it morphs from making those cold calls to managing a loan pipeline of those loans that are coming in, as well as managing and maintaining the relationships that they've developed with those brokers to make sure loans continue to come in. A typical day at that point in time might be calculating debt ratios, reviewing income documents, tax returns and pay stubs. They might be reviewing, their credit report and evaluating that. They'll have conversations with their existing brokers about a particular loan. They'll be having conversations with operations support personnel about a particular loan. And on top of that, if they're good at what they do and they're motivated, they're still going to set aside some time to continue to make calls, to establish new relationships and earn new business. But the job changes dramatically over time. And the point really is that it gets a lot easier. It gets a lot easier because you're no longer making the cold calls, which can be tough in the beginning. And it exponentially becomes more and more lucrative as their broker network expands. Yeah, to be honest with you, there's no preparation involved. What I encourage students is just be yourself. You know, we don't go through a hardcore interview that follows certain protocols. I'm looking to learn about an individual, see what makes them tick, see what their personality is like, see how they respond to the way I describe the opportunity, right? I'm looking for some, like a raised eyebrow, like a little excitement in their eye. I'm not, like I said before, I'm not looking for any kind of particular experience or preparation. Ideally, I'm just looking for someone that's says, wow, I can really do that in this business. Tell me what I got to do and I'll do it. That's really all it is. So no preparation involved. We'll teach them everything they need to know about the business. What we can't do is give them their personality. We can't give them their drive. That's something that's got to come from within. It's pretty simple. They talk to me first. I typically will talk to someone on the phone for a solid 45 minutes to an hour. Why that long? Because I like to tell them a little bit about my history, because I also came into the business accidentally, like most of us have. I too went through, finance and accounting, got my CPA, and mortgage business was never exposed to me. So I came from an environment where I was programmed to go in a certain direction. So I kind of explained to them, hey, I was in your shoes. I understand what your challenge might be with this particular opportunity. I then go on to educate them on the mortgage business as a whole. As I outlined earlier, the difference between wholesale and retail, which is very important because there's some key benefits to being in wholesale versus retail. And then I proceed to basically tell them the tough part of the job. Almost scare them away in a sense to make sure they've got what it takes to do that position, and to also be very transparent about what the job is like so that they don't feel misled or that I painted an overly rosy picture for them. After that first interview, if they're still interested, we'll set them up to speak with a local manager and a national manager. Again, it's a relatively casual phone call. It's more of a get to know each other as opposed to, hardcore questions. Let's see if they answer all these questions right. It's real simple. Well, from my perspective, a couple things. Number one, it is much more lucrative than a traditional job. That's the bottom line, number one. Number two, you get paid according to the effort you put forth, as opposed to getting paid the same no matter how good your work is, right? If you've got two guys in a regular job doing the same job, one's exceeding expectations, one's meeting expectations, guess what? They're both making the same amount of money. I was always the guy that was exceeding expectations, and it bothered me that the guy meeting expectations was making the same money as I was. So sales gives you an opportunity to control your destiny, control your ability to earn an income. Another one that I think gets overlooked a lot, and I really encourage kids to really think about this, is that it is much tougher to get into sales later in life. Why? Because you've gotten accustomed to a certain salary, and inevitably, if you've gotten a certain salary a few years into it and you want to go into sales, you're going to have to take a step backwards because the compensation is going to be mostly, commission driven as opposed to base. So taking that step backwards, if you're already set, if you're married, if you've got kids, if you've got a home, if you've got obligations, very hard to do. But if you're a young kid, just got out of college, maybe still living at home, maybe have 5 or 6 different roommates, your expenses are relatively low, you can afford to take risks. You can afford to go out there and try something, and if it doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. And I say this sincerely because when I came out of college, I was definitely afraid of failing. But at the end of the day, you got to be willing to take a shot. Follow your heart, take a shot, and see where it takes you. Oh yeah, so you guys noticed my little bobblehead here. So, one really unique thing about Orion Lending, and I love this, I've never seen a company do this before. When you reach your 3-year anniversary, which I just did in this past November, the executive management team gets together and they design a bobblehead in somewhat your image based on your personality. And if you can tell, this is very Wolverine-ish. People say I look like the Wolverine, so Jeremy and Curtis, the president and EVP, thought it'd be funny to give me the cool little hairdo there and the claws, as you can see on the hand. So I thought I'd bring this in. It's a lot of fun. They presented via video to the entire company, and when Jeremy sent it out, it was pretty funny. So as part of sharing with candidates kind of our culture, I will send them the video, and a lot of them get a kick out of it. It gets a lot of positive response. So we like to have fun. We work hard, but we play hard too.
So our base pay is $34,600 per year.
That's actually a very competitive salary given our bonus structure. I have put together what we call ignition to blast off sequence. If you haven't already picked up on it, Orion Lending is named after the constellation of stars, okay? If you go on our website, our theme is all space. So, the ignition to blast off is what I call the 1-year roadmap. I also call it the 4x4x4x4 plan. Jeremy likes to joke and call it the Tonka truck plan. But basically it means this: 4 weeks of training, 4 months on the phone, 4 brokers signed up, 4 loans a month. That formula gets you to $80,000 a year in the first year. So you're well on your way to hitting a 6-figure trajectory by the second year, if God forbid you don't hit it in the first year. And I've got that illustrated in one of my handouts. That's the reason you want to join Orion Lending. That's the reason you want to do this job. You do not want to do this job because of the base salary. In short order, you'll forget about the base salary. That's how lucrative this position can be. I'm not kidding when I say some people make 7 figures. Now, those are the rock stars, obviously. I'm not promising anyone 7 figures. But 6 figures, let me put it to you this way. You either make it and hit 6 figures or you don't. There's really no middle ground. There's no $50,000 a year account executives, bottom line. So your mentality has to be in the right place. If you come in with the mentality of, I want a salary, I want something steady, that's probably not the right person for the job, to be very frank. All I can tell you is, I think this is an opportunity of a lifetime. I think this is one of those rare opportunities that you're not going to stumble into very often. I'm going to go back to the wholesale retail. Entry-level opportunities in retail as a loan officer are a dime a dozen. Entry-level opportunities as an account executive in wholesale are not. And I'll quickly for you outline the 3 key benefits to working in a business-to-business environment versus a business-to-consumer. Number 1, when you're dealing with an individual consumer, okay, no matter how logical they are, the sale is always going to be emotional. They got an emotional investment in it, and selling someone on something with emotions is really hard to do. If you're trying to sell them a house and the kitchen's not in the right location or the doorway to the garage isn't the right size, there's nothing you can do to overcome that objection. That's number 1. Number 2, hours, right? If you work as a loan officer and you're dealing with individual people, you're going to find yourself working after hours, nights, lunchtime, weekends. Why? Because your clients are working also, and a lot of times they're going to want to talk to you when they're not working anymore. So you have to make yourself available if you want to be successful. In wholesale, on the other hand, that doesn't happen because brokers don't expect to be talking to you outside of business hours. They know nothing's going to happen with the loan outside of business hours. So you've got that advantage. And third, most importantly, in the retail side, one borrower, one individual is one loan. That loan's done, you got to build a new relationship, establish new rapport with a new borrower, and to do another loan. And then that loan's done, you got to do it again and do it again and do it again. So it becomes a grind. In our world, one broker could represent 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 loans a month. And if you work that relationship properly, they could potentially feed you business for the rest of your career. Obviously, you add more brokers onto that, all of a sudden you got 10, 15, 20, 25 brokers, each giving you 5, 10, 15 loans a month. It becomes kind of a residual income stream. And as I mentioned earlier, the job gets a lot easier. In the beginning, it's hard because you got to make the cold calls to get those brokers signed up. But once they're signed up, if you work it the right way, the business just keeps coming in. So repetitive business versus one-time transaction. Big, big benefit.